Today is going to be a special video about two special designer brands which I cherish and which I would like to appreciate more and to make people appreciate them more too, because these brands have stepped into the modern world bravely without taking the same road, following the same steps as most of the designers did. But there are fragrance brands that have managed to remain successful in this modern era without going down that road. And one of these brands is, of course, Guerlain. The L'Homme Ideal line smells modern but still smells like a Guerlain fragrance. Guerlain is a proper fragrance brand, and I'm sure that you all know this by now, but this is a designer brand that deals mainly with fragrances. They have a huge legacy behind, and they managed to keep that legacy while still being successful and stepping into this modern era. And they have fragrances for every type, every gender, every type of taste. They have unique smelling fragrances, they have classic smelling fragrances. I mean, Guerlain is still one of the proper designer brands when it comes to fragrances. That's why I'm cherishing this brand, and I'm highly recommending this brand. I want to keep it as it is. I don't want it to follow the trend and make boring fragrances. And the other brand which I highly recommend is, of course, the House of Aramis. And probably, most likely, they didn't have like the great success that Guerlain had stepping into the modern era, but they still kept their own classic Aramis DNA in their fragrances, trying to get it more modern with releases like Tobacco Reserve, which unfortunately didn't remain on the market. Probably it didn't get enough love, but they still didn't release a modern smelling fragrance like rest of the houses did. And for that reason alone, I respect this house and I appreciate this house more and more. And you know why? Another reason is, let me tell you something. You probably think that, I don't care that much about Aramis. I don't like old school smelling fragrances. I don't like barbershop smelling fragrances. But Aramis doesn't always smell like barbershop fragrances. And you will understand that with age, you will want to smell something more serious, something more mature, something more classic. And if that moment comes in your life and Aramis follows the trend and stops making these classic fragrances, at some point we won't have this kind of brand that offers classic fragrances. So that's why I highly recommend these two brands, because they're keeping their own game and we want them to stay as who they are, keep making interesting and unique smelling fragrances. Of course, there might be other designer brands which haven't gone into this modern game of fragrances, such as Moschino. I don't think they have one of those releases like a fragrance that smells like bubblegum or Ambroxan. I think another brand like those is Cartier. But I'm not that experienced with these brands, and until I am, I cannot safely recommend them. That's why, for now, these two brands, I highly recommend. And that was it. Until the next video, keep smelling great.